start. So we'll start with the first section, hands-on part on data discovery and export. So all of you have the G introduction repository. It consists of 2 parts here. So make sure you are working in the correct repository. It should be G introduction. We have part 1 and part 2. We might not complete the part 1 before lunch, but this roughly takes about 3 hours. This will be about 2 hours of time, but we'll try to get through as much as we can before lunch. So let's expand this and go part 1. This is the code here. The way the code is structured is that we'll start our section with a script. When we're working on a script, no typing. Look at me. I'll ask you questions. I'll try to build your intuition on how Earth Engine works and what will happen. So you understand, learn the concept, ask questions. Whatever I'm typing is already there in the B script. So everything I've done, I'll type. Whatever I'm building, it's already there in the B script. So you don't need to take notes. It's already there. And once we do B, we'll do the C one. That's the exercise. That's where you type the code and solve a problem. Okay? So you'll get a chance to do this. So let's start. The goal of this module is to be able to find data. We'll use Sentinel-2 imagery. We'll find the Sentinel-2 images for any region of the world. We'll take images for 1 year worth of imagery. We'll create a composite. We'll clip it to a region of interest and download that. That's a goal. But first, we need to learn about JavaScript. So let's start with the first script. We'll learn about the script. Try it out. Load this A script and click Run here. Go ahead and click Run. When you're learning a new language, programming language, the first thing you do is print hello world. And this tells you how to give input to the system and how the system gives you output. In Earth Engine, JavaScript is very simple. You say print. Print here is a function. So print here is a function which takes some input, in this case hello world, and it'll print it. In Earth Engine, if you ask it to print or show you some text or a chart, it's going to show you here in the console. Okay? So it says hello world here. In Earth Engine, you write a script. This is 1 line. You end all your command with a semicolon. Semicolon indicates the command is done. Okay? Let's type 1 more line of code. Okay. Here, what do you think it will print? Hello class, right? You run it, and it will print hello class. So whatever input you give to print, it's going to print that. We are typing code. Sometimes you want to type code which will not be executed. Just as a reference, you want to document something. So it can be you can write a comment. So you can start any command with the 2 forward slashes that will be interpreted as a comment. So when I run this, nothing will happen. Right? You just run it. It just says ignores everything that's in this 2 forward slash. But it's a comment for you to kind of document your code for yourself. The first thing we need to learn when we are learning a programming language is something called variables. Let's learn how to define variables in JavaScript. Variables allow you to store some information and then retrieve them later. Many times you are saying, I want to do this. I want to store the name of my city as a variable, and I want to retrieve them later. In JavaScript, variables have to be declared using this keyword var. Okay. So I'm just going to do. So here I've defined command var city equals San Francisco. Many things going on here. You have variable called city, which has now taken up this value, San Francisco. Whenever you want to assign a text value in JavaScript, you need to put quotes around it. Right? Single quotes or double quotes, both are fine. JavaScript accepts both. It's purely a matter of preference. Some people like single quotes, some people like double quotes, both work. Okay. There are people who are very particular about quotes, and they say, my team uses only single quotes. I work with some teams, like, I will not accept your code because we use double quotes here. And like, don't be that. Like, just use whatever. The only recommendation I have is be consistent. If you're using double quotes, use double quotes everywhere. If you use single quotes everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just to also mention, there might be also cases where you might want to be careful also with with the quotes. So for instance, probably later with Ujaval, we're going to see the part where when we add the data to the viewer, and a part of that includes including the name of how it's going to be displayed when it shows in the map viewer. And so there might be cases where you might say Sentinel2 and use an apostrophe for something. And so then if you use an additional apostrophe, let's say you're using the single quote, it will essentially break that. So that might be a case where, therefore, you might want to use the, be careful with the double quotes. So just an example where.
Yeah, so if you want to have a single quote or double quote as part of your data, then you need to use a different quote, right? I would say, it's a nice day. And if I say IT and apostrophe S, it's not going to work. So, but again, in general, use quotes. Now, if I say print city, what do you think it'll print here? San Francisco. When you ask the value of a variable, when it's a print a variable, it's going to find the value of the variable stored inside and do this. Okay. What about this? What do you think it'll print? City, right? If you put something in quotes, JavaScript says it's a text. I'm going to give it as a text. If you do not put quotes, JavaScript says this must be a variable. I'm going to find the value of the variable. This is probably the biggest mistake beginners will make. You're trying to write code, and you'll put stuff in quotes, which are variables. You have stuff that should be text. You forgot quotes. So remember, without quotes, it'll be a variable. With quotes, it's going to be the value of the variable. I'm going to use city of Bangalore as an example. You can also assign variables with numbers. Right? So you can say the population of Bangalore is 8.6 billion, and you can assign a number. And if you print this, it'll print the value. Right? You can just use this. A handy shortcut that you can start learning is Control plus Enter. So you can just run it. It'll just run the code. You don't have to reach out and put the run button. Super helpful, small thing, but once you learn this, you can. Yeah, so this is two variables. There's no, JavaScript just has a text or a number, you can use that. If you want to store multiple values in a variable, sometimes you say, my region of interest consists of 5 counties that I want to process. Like I want to create a list of counties. So you need to store multiple values. You have to use something called a list. So let's learn how to define list in JavaScript. As you start learning programming, you need to start keeping track of all the brackets. So far, in natural language, you just use parentheses, right? Round brackets. As you do programming, there are many different kinds of brackets. These are called square brackets. These are used to create a list. So let's create a list. I'm going to create a variable called major cities. I'm going to define the major cities in India. So I've written a list of cities. So you can see that everything is in a quote. So there are 4 different values separated by comma, and they are in the square brackets. Let's print this. If I print it, you get to something like this. This triangle thing is called a zippy. You'll see this a lot in Earth Engine, where you have a lot of information that you want to display. You don't want to display everything together. You just put it in a container. So if you see this triangle, zippy, you can expand it, and you can see all the stuff that's inside of this. Okay? So there are 4 things inside. Okay. Anybody knows why there's 0, 1, 2, 3 here? Yeah. Yeah.
So it's because of the sequence in the dictionary?
So it's called an index. It is the position of the item. It says Delhi is first item, index 0, Chennai is the second item. In JavaScript, counting starts from 0. That's something that, again, you have to unlearn counting. Counting starts from 0. Another mistake beginner programmers will make, this is called off by 1 error. You'll be coding and say, I want the 5th item. And you'll say index 5, and you'll get the 6th item, right? Because counting starts from 0. So remember that counting starts from 0. This index are created automatically. They describe the position of the item into this. Also, you see, I named a variable in a funny way. Right, you see, I have this variable name, small, major, and then capital C. Anybody knows what is this called? What this type of variable naming? Camel case. It's called camel case, like a hump of a camel. This is the style of variables that are recommended for JavaScript. So you start your variable name with a small case and capitalize every word. It just, if you don't do this, it's still fine. If I just say, like in Python, you'll do something like this. This is the way to do this in Python. It'll still work. But again, to be consistent, the style you want to follow is this. So if I want to have a variable name, major cities in India, I would describe it like this. Right? This will how I name a variable. This will also help you because all the JavaScript, all the API functions in Earth Engine also follow the same method. So if you see any of those functions, you can see all of those are also camel case. So if you use camel case, your code will be consistent. It'll look like it's the same code, right? So I recommend using camel case for all your JavaScript code. Feel free to stop and ask questions at any time. We're halfway there through your JavaScript lesson, right? So we learn variables, list. The next thing we need to learn is when we're working with data science, like we're doing, we often work with structured data. We don't have just a list of things. We know what each of this thing is. So let's say you have some metadata about an image and you want to store that. How do you store that? If you store this as a list, you need to remember, oh, the first item was cloud cover, second item was the sensor, and so on. Right? Instead, you can just name the item. If you have a named data, like a structured data, you'll use something called a dictionary. And you'll, again, when you're describing your code, you'll use this a lot to say, I have some data, I want to do some processing, but I want to name each of my items. For dictionaries, you need to use curly brackets. Okay, one more brackets to keep track of. So let's just say I have this dictionary. I'll use the curly brackets, and it'll be a key value pair. So name of the item and the value of the item. So I'll say the name of my item is city. The city name is this. I have another item called population. The value is this. Maybe I have another item, elevation in meters. So this is my dictionary. Let me print this. And you can see I have 3 items here, right? So each item, there's no index. It's a name. So we want to say, what is the elevation of the city? You just say, give me the elevation value for the city. Right? So this is how you do this. JavaScript also allows you to kind of write your command over multiple lines. So you can see I can just break this down over multiple lines. And JavaScript will say, this is totally fine. The command ends only when you encounter a semicolon. So this will work. So sometimes when you have a long line of code, you can break it down so it's more readable using this. If you forget a semicolon, that's fine. The code editor is a forgiving environment. It'll say, it's fine. I think you meant a semicolon here. It'll give you this friendly warning, missing semicolon. You run this, it's fine. The code will run. So if you don't like to put this extra character, don't do it. I personally don't like seeing these errors in my code, so I'm very particular about putting semicolons. It's up to you. You can decide not to put it. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
When can that go wrong for you?
Usually, I've not seen any case, because you're not doing any complex JavaScript stuff here. If you're writing very complex JavaScript stuff with a lot of inline functions and stuff, it can, sometimes not very explicit and it can cause some problem. But you're doing very, very simple JavaScript stuff here. All the complicated stuff is in the API. So I've not seen a case where it will bite you, but yeah, it's good to be explicit rather than implicit. So you say, this is the code, I'm ending my command here. All right. Remember, we used a function, print as a function. So in Earth Engine, one of the main things you need to do is you want to describe your computation and say, I want to process this image, and I want to detect water bodies. Right? And so I know how to do this for one image, and now I want to do this every image ever collected in my country. You can do this in Earth Engine, but you need to put your computation in a function. So Earth Engine can say, I'll give you an image, you detect the water bodies, right? So whatever you want to do, in Earth Engine, you'll write a function for this. A function is something that takes an input, one or more input, does something with it, and returns an output. So you'll have to learn how to write your own functions for describing your computation. Let's write this function. I'm going to describe this. A function can take some input. I'm just going to name this as an input. It'll do something with the input. And it'll return the output. Okay. So I have a function that takes some input, creates a new variable, and returns that variable. Let's call this function. I'm going to call this function. Okay. What do you think this function, this will print? This line 30, what do you think it will print? Hello world. Because the input, whatever input you give to the function here, this input will be assigned to this variable input here. That's whatever variable defined here. This value will go here. Let's say I'll create a new string called hello plus whatever input and return that. Let's run this. You can see it says hello world. The advantage of function is now I can change the input and my output changes. Right? I don't need to write code for this. So that's the advantage why we want a function. Just say given an input, I can do this. The input here can be anything. Like I can just say x, same thing. Right? It's just a variable that you assign to the input. Whatever you give, it's, whatever input will be assigned to x, and it'll be use that. What about this? What do you think will be the output? Yeah. There'll be no output. Any other guesses? Give an error. Any other guesses? Null. Undefined, right? It says, and again, this is a very common mistake you make. Say, I wrote my function perfectly, but my code is not working. Reason is you forgot to return. You did some processing. The function is not returning anything. So the output is like, I didn't get anything back. So number one thing to remember when writing functions, make sure you have a return statement. So you return whatever you've done, and once you do the return, your code will work. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just to make another point regarding the functions, and so I'm sure too we're going to see a little bit later this afternoon with Ujaval, things like, so again, part of what you guys are interested in is probably time series analysis, etc. And so functions are really powerful in that, like for instance, let's say you want to do an NDVI on not just one image but multiple images, you can then do what's called a map function to then take that same thing and then do it recursively over and over again. So again, like getting this part of like, how to start with functions will allow you to do some really sophisticated and powerful stuff later. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
All right, and the next thing you need to learn, well, nothing. That's it. That's all the JavaScript you need to know to use Earth Engine. I've been using Earth Engine for 5+ years, day in and day out, and I only know this much JavaScript. Right? I see some happy faces. The JavaScript program is a bit sad. It's like, I spent all my life learning JavaScript and I cannot use any of it. Seriously, this is all the JavaScript you need to know, and then you'll be able to use Earth Engine. The rest of the class, we just need to know what API function to do when you need to do. So I'm going to focus on teaching you how to do your work using the API. This is just to describe computation. And as Emil mentioned, you'll need to learn how to do NDVI. Once you know, you can put it in a function, you'll need to use the syntax, and then you can run it on all of the things. But the NDVI itself, you cannot compute in JavaScript. You need to use the Earth Engine API. Yeah?
I would like to ask you in what cases should we use functions inside print command, because I really try to avoid that. I have several issues with that.
So here, what is happening is, this would be a better way to do this. Right? You say call a function, the output comes, you store it in a variable, and you can print the variable. So it's just more better because you want to store that. So you call the function, stores result here, you can call this here.
I was wondering more about the client side and the server side. And thank you. Sorry. I was asking mostly because of the client server and that. Because in several cases we're working with some functions and we use print command inside. And we have errors. I don't remember.
Yeah. So sorry. So your question is, I want to print something here. Right? Should I use this or not? So this will work here, but This is not recommended because many times when you're running the functions using the Earth Engine API, these functions will run on the Earth Engine servers. And this print, say, where will it print? Should it print on the server or on a browser? Right? So again, print should not be used inside of the functions when you're running it on the server side. So you can do your work, return the output, and then you can print the output once it's processed. So, good question. One more thing that might be useful is sometimes you have this script and you say, I only want to run this part. I don't want to run everything else. Right? In code editor, there's no easy way to just select a block and run this. The way to kind of do this is you can select the stuff that you do not want to run and then comment it out. So there's a shortcut, control plus /. So you control plus forward, it'll comment out stuff that you selected, and now when you run this, it'll only run this part, right? Because I've commented out everything else. Once I want to get it back, I select it again, control plus /. Sorry. So select this, control plus /, and it'll uncomment that. Right? So the shortcut is control plus /. Is for comment. On Mac, it's I think command /. Reverse, same. So if let me show you here. So controls plus // will comment. It'll keep doing this, right? So this is a way where you have long code and you said something's not working, comment out everything else, try to uncomment piece by piece and see if your code works. Yeah.
And maybe that's where you talked about the differences with Python. I guess that's where with Python you could definitely run it section by section versus this where it runs, as you said, everything unless you comment out.
Yeah, in Python, if you run your code in the notebooks allow you to run piece of code piece by piece. It's quite helpful for data science where you don't have to run everything from first to end. It just runs the piece that's needed. All right, time to do our first exercise. So go ahead and open up the script 1C. Okay, before we do this, if you type some code and you try to save it, it'll give you this warning. First, it's my repository. I've not given you write access. It'll say, do you want to create your own repository and save it in your own account? You can do this. So if you hit save, and it'll say, I want to save it, it'll say, do you want to save it in your own account? If it's the first time you're saving something into Earth Engine, it'll first ask you, create your username. It'll give you one dialog saying, select your username. Be very careful what you type. The username will be something like this, Ujaval Gandhi, right? So this is what it needs to create first hand. If you say testing 1, 2, 3, you'll be forever known as testing 1, 2, 3 in Earth Engine. And you can never change it. Like I worked at Google, there's no way to change it, right? So make sure, I know one of my students who's testing 1, 2, 3. So I want to be careful, make sure that you don't say testing 1, 2, 3. This should be your ID of whatever, right? And then you create a repository. A repository is a place where you can save folders and scripts, etc. Typically, I have one repository for each project. So if you're working on a project, you have a repository where you can save a bunch of scripts and have folders, etc. Right? So make sure if you want to save your work, you can save it. Otherwise, you can just switch to script 1C and try the exercise. So try this out, 1C. The exercise says, create a list of these 5 cities and print it. Okay, so try out. We just learned how to create the list. If you do not remember the syntax, go to the B script, which has got the syntax. You can copy paste it, learn it, and then I want you to create a variable called large cities and put all the cities names, and you can do this. And I'm going to do just a 5-minute thing. So let's try this out. If you try this out and if you get an error, raise your hands, one of the TAs, or I'll come and help you. But worth trying this out. Yeah.
Can you share the bit.ly?
Yeah.
You have a question?
A quick question on when we save to a new repository and we renamed it, it's only going to save that file, right? So then we have to do that each time because we only have read access. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for if you want to do everything, each of these repositories if I do the settings, they are actually a Git repository, right? So if you know Git, you can actually clone it to your computer, and you can manage all of this using your computer. So you can do this management yourself. But to get started, just do one by one.
I assume, Ujaval, that you're going to keep this repository so also the students don't necessarily have to copy every single one of your scripts because they can come back to this afterwards, correct?
Yeah, so all of this will be available forever, and all my code is open source. It'll be there forever, so you can access it. So don't need to copy everything here. If you're getting errors, struggling with it, I put up the solution on the screen. Try to, you can look at it and see what's the difference between yours. And this stuff, if you never coded before, there's a lot of things going on, right? You need to take care of quotes, commas, brackets, semicolons. So again, this is like learning a new language, so it's okay.
Capitalizations also?
Capitalizations, yes, it's all case sensitive. And I want you to get comfortable with errors. Do not be afraid of errors. Like if you see this red boxes in your code, that's fine. It's just telling you that you just need to fix your syntax. If you hover over this, it'll tell you, say, oh, you forgot closing brackets, right? So do not be afraid of the errors. But if you have an error that you cannot resolve, please call one of us. We'll help you figure out what's the error. All right, anybody needs help? The exercises will get more complicated, do not worry. All right, time's up. Let's get to the next script.